In ancient Sumerian texts, Galla refers to enforcers and servants of the underworld who drag the living or newly dead into the underworld without mercy. By the Akkadian period, they are called gallu, increasingly portrayed as feared demonic forces in religious texts. In Africa, they were the name of merciless occult warlord armed forces or militias who destroyed much of ancient Africa. The expressions Galla and gallu exist in ancient Sumerian Africa, not by accident, but because there is a connection, one that hasn't been explored, because African history is often ignored. Geronimo Lobo, or Jerome Lobo, the Jesuit priest who encountered them and received their help in his failed attempts to exert Portuguese influence and control in ancient Abyssinia, said about them. Among these Abyssinian nations, the Galla, who first alarmed the world in 1542, have remarkably distinguished themselves by the ravages they have committed and the terror they raised in this part of Africa. I came across the expressions Galla and gallu while listening to the ancient Sumerian story of Inanna and Dumuzi, which is often compared to the story of Cain and Abel. And I came across the idea that gallu appears in ancient Akkadian records as well. And this wouldn't mean anything if these didn't appear in Africa, among populations that had come under the influence of the Sudanic populations from Basra, Iraq, where these terms originate. And in ancient Sumeria, the Galla are described as underworld enforcers, servants of the queen of the underworld, beings who drag the living or the newly dead into the underworld. And by the time of the Akkadians, they are called gallu, feared underworld beings who enforce death and separation from the living world, increasingly associated with demonic forces in ritual and magical texts. And in Africa in the 1500s until about the 1800s, the term Galla exists to describe a specific population or ethnic group. And the term gallu exists and is still used in the Chewa Nyanja languages of Malawi and in some Somali dialects, where it means dog, and it is used in the negative sense. It is used as a slur in a derogatory sense, implying subservience, obedience, and the following of commands. This is the way the Sudanic Galla Shiluk Nguni derived occult warlords referred to the populations they had abducted and broken. They referred to them as dogs, which basically meant they were broken and obedient and subservient to them. The Galla, according to African history records, were the Sudanic Shilluk armed forces or militias out of the Showa kingdom in the 1500s. We know they were from the Showa because Muzimba, who would later create the Jaga, which would be the group that would splinter off and create many of the African populations we see today, like the Nguni, the Khoi, and the Jagas, was a Galla general from this kingdom of the Showa in Ethiopia. Galla is the former or earlier name of the Oromo and other Somali-related populations, who were also connected to the Maravi Confederacy, which would later invade and destroy the kingdom or the realm of the Proto-Bantu at Shindi in what would later become Malawi. This is how the word gallu comes into Malawi and African languages. We learn about the Galla from Geronimo Lobo or Jerome Lobo, the Jesuit priest, who most likely had a blood oath with them because he came away with their cooperation and help, which was only possible if a blood oath had been performed. He never mentions this, but it's kind of obvious that he probably had to have performed one. And he says about the Galla, these Gallas lay everything where they come in ruin, putting all to the sword except without distinction of age or sex. Such barbarities, though their numbers are not great, have spread the terror of them all over the country. They feed upon raw cow's flesh, and I'll mention this is like many other cultures have Kitfo, Tartar, Yoko, Carpaccio, and so on. But he continues, when they kill a cow, they keep the blood to rub their bodies with and wear the guts about their necks for ornaments which they afterwards give to their wives. Their deity they call in their language Ulu. Now, in ancient Sumeria, there is an expression Ul, which represents the concept of ancientness or mythic time, the beginning before history. And this is most likely what Lobo understood and heard, but he spelled his as O-U-L, but it kind of comes down to the same pronunciation, old. And he continues with the Galla way of life, he says, they neither sow their lands nor improve them by any kind of culture, but living upon milk and flesh, encamp like the Arabs without any settled habitation. They practice no rites of worship, though they believe that in the regions above there dwells a being that governs the world. Whether by this being they mean the sun or the sky, it is not known, or indeed whether they have not some concept of a God that created them. And finally, African history is complex and also part of world history. It is often uncomfortable and deserves to be recorded objectively so that there can be healing from past traumas.